Evening. Last meeting with son that Stephen had been stoned, and and so and Abigail went to recognize him because he was Abigail wanted to ascertain herself that Stephen was his beloved brother Jaziel. Let's then begin the the text from today. In a few minutes, old Gamaliel arrived. So, he said kindly, I hope to leave next week. I'm going to rest at my brother's place. So, made a slight gesture of thanks. I have, said Gamaliel, one last request to make. I regard Simon Peter as a friend. He has just come and asked my intervention for the victim's body. Did you say victim? Asked so. The existence of a victim implies an executioner, and I am no one's executioner. I defended the law to the end. Gamaliel, Gamaliel understood the objection and retorted, do not see the mark of recrimination in my words. Neither the time nor the place is fitting for an argument. I have arrived at some profound conclusions regarding the so called carpenter of Nazareth. However, I am too old and weak to start any movement of renewal within the seat of Judaism. The desert, in its silent majesty of isolation, was always seducing to our forefathers. I shall avoid the scandal that my new ideas and attitudes would certainly provoke. Saul of Tarsus was stupefied. Even Gamaliel seemed to be suffering the influence of the strange sorceress. So was about to rebuke Anarch with him when the venerable mentor of his Pharisaic youth stated, you deemed a weak and won over, but do not drag me in a loathsome controversy. I am here only to ask you a favor, and I trust you will not refuse it. Could I arrange for Stephen's remains to be removed immediately? I grant it, he said at last. Gamaliel said goodbye, sincerely grateful, alleging the need to change her bloody soaked garment. Abigail left immediately after the interview with Gamaliel. At Delilah's house, the poor girl was taken with a high fever. In tears, the young woman from Corinth had asked to be taken back to Zechariah's house. Gamaliel's former disciple took all the measures needed to satisfy Abigail's wishes. Ruth received the young woman in her arms, moved and afflicted. So proud as he listened to them, making an effort to hide his emotions. The future rabbi succumbed to a storm of adverse thoughts and headed back to Jerusalem with the intention of never returning to Joppa again. Here we finish the chapter 8. And let's begin the chapter 9. Abigail the Christian. After Stephen's martyrdom, the persecution against all disciples or sympathizers of the way grew much worse. Ruthless inquiries were ordered regarding any family that displayed any attraction or sympathy for the ideas of the Nazarene Messiah. The lowly church, where Peter, in his goodness, continued helping the most unfortunate, was strictly monitored by soldiers who had been ordered to put a stop to sermons. Morally upright men and mothers even were interrogated in scandalous public proceedings. A huge exodus began. The city became empty of workers. It's very significant, as we see here, that this made the gospel, the followers of the gospel, to go out of Jerusalem. It's there in Act of Apostles. The Christianism was very focused in Jerusalem. With that persecution, they went to Samaria, Galilee, even to Syria. And we see that this was a very beginning spreading of the gospel followers. In Act of Apostles, we will see another time it will when it will happen, and it will be described in this book later. So seemed to be possessed by criminal indifference. In him, the most sincere pleas met a stone wall. To Saul, that anonymous carpenter was the cause of his failure with regard to Abigail's love. He had not returned to Zacharias' house. He greatly missed Abigail's tenderness. Her memory had never left his heart and disquieted soul. No woman could ever replace her in his heart. 8 months of unending struggle had passed by since Stephen's death, when Saul, surrendering before the Lord, decided to see once one more the flowery landscape along the roads to Joppa. He was certain he could win back Abigail's love. With a heavy heart, he mounted the small chariot. How hesitant he had been to humble himself. The twilight filled nature with reflections of glistening gold, the deep blue sky, the greenery of the countryside, the soft breezes of the afternoon were the same as before. He felt revived. His hopes and dreams continued untouched. He would tell her of his despair, his sleepless nights, his sleepless nights, and the continuation of his immense love for her, though he would remain firm in his purpose of avoiding any allusion to the carpenter of Nazareth. He would tell Abigail that he regretted not having helped her. He would kiss her hair and would formulate new plans of love and happiness. His heart was racing when Zechariah appeared, greatly surprised at the door. I thought that some of your friends might have already given you the bad news, he started saying. Abigail fell ill with lung problems over 4 months ago. And to be frank, we have no hope. So turned pale. As soon as she came back unexpectedly from Jerusalem, the poor girl began wasting away, bedridden. I anxiously asked for you so that we could decide what was best for her, but you didn't. But has Abigail complained about me at all? Asked so apprehensively. Not in the least, but she seemed to improve soon after a period of high fever, and she said your absence was necessary and that she was aware of your many responsibilities. Whenever Ruth tries to comfort her by saying that you are behaving ungratefully, Abigail is always the first to defend you. We think our adopted daughter is oppressed by a profound grief she's trying to hide. While she could still walk, she would visit the peach trees at the same hour she used to go with you. At first, my wife found her weeping in the night. You see, his Zechariah and Ruth were suspecting Saul had has had done something that was not right, but he tried not to say that directly to Saul, to not touch directly in the question, to allow him so to tell anything about, but he was closed. He didn't said any word that would say what was what had he done to Abigail and to her brother. Yeah,
And for me, what was very interesting was to that Saul ask if she complains about him. He's still worried about his image, and that for me is like, oh my gosh, he lose the opportunity to be quiet because
excuse me, all you. But women say, "What a dog! What is this man thinking? He is what he has done, and why doesn't he tells to the other what is happening? They are suffering. Oh my God! Then it may be like that. So let's go. Later, however, a poor old man named Ananias was in the area for about a week. Abigail began meeting him at our tenant farmer's house. From then on, she displayed great spiritual strength. When the poor beggar left, he gave her some notes containing the teachings of the famous carpenter of Nazareth. The carpenter! So cut in, obviously upset. Him. We thought it may be appropriate to keep her away from such a spiritual novelty, but Ruth decided that it was now her only distraction. We have noticed that Abigail has felt greatly consoled, and the fact is that we have not seen her weeping anymore. The sorrow has been transformed in a comforting expression of inner happiness. And she talks about you with a love that grows purer each day. Even so, the change has not altered the progress of the illness slowly devouring her. Day after day, we see her bending toward the grave. So was feeling undisguised and anguish. His spirit was crushed. Abigail's interest in the persecuted gospel revealed the victory of the Nazarene carpenter over the dreams of his youth. Come with me, said Zechariah. Lying in the bed and assisted by Ruth's maternal affection, the young woman was very thin and her complexion has taken on an ivory color, but her clear eyes displayed complete spiritual peace. So could not hide his shock when he saw her. On her part, the young woman welcomed the joyful surprise, overcome with sincere and overflowing happiness. The future Rabbi caressed her delicate hands. They talked about the hopes that had continued to comfort them before this re-encounter. Zechariah and Ruth laughed greatly. Abigail exclaimed, so highly moved as soon as they were alone. I have abandoned my pride to come here to ask you whatever you have forgiven me. Don't talk me about forgiveness, she said. We belong to each other. So, listening to the tender timbre of that loving voice, so was moved. That humility and that tone of tenderness pierced his heart, enabling him regain his discernment for the right path to take. He was certainly he would love and fight for her. God will bless our hopes. We will fulfill our ideal. I have come back to take you with me. So I do not believe the homes of earth were made for us. God knows how much I wish to be the loving mother of your children. As soon as you came into my life, I made big plans for a holy and happy existence in which we could honor God. So listened, highly moved. But heaven, she continued, has taken from me the potential for such earthly happiness. I would return from each night's wandering with tears in my eyes, the daughters of the despair in my heart, That was when a respectable old man named Ananias appeared around here and introduced me to the sacred light of the new revelation. I learned the story of Christ, the Son of the living God. I devoured his gospel of redemption and strengthened myself in his examples. A sudden coughing spell cut her tale short. He had never experienced such sharp, morally caused pain. Seeing the natural sincerity and the loving sweetness of those confessions, he felt pierced by bitter remorse. How could he have forsaken his soul's chosen like that and forget his loyalty and love? Above all else, he hated that carpenter. He, that carpenter seemed to have taken his place in his adored betrothed's heart. Abigail, he said emotionally, let go these sad thoughts. They could poison the dreams of our youth. Soon you will be healthy. I know you've forgiven me for your brother's death, and my family will welcome you in Tarsus with true joy, he said. We will be happy, very happy. But mixing smiles and tears, she added, darling, I too would love to get well. Honestly, I would. But I can see that God's plans are different concerning our destinies. Jesus has called me to his spiritual family. Please do not repeat such things. How could someone like this Christ come between our wishes? He said. So, what good would it do to us to despair? This bed is one of meditation and death. See, I have coughed at blood several times. My end is at hand. But we believe in God and we know the end is only physical. Our soul will never die. We will love each other forever. Um, Thinking about the cause of her sickness, Abigail's sickness, we imagine that she had a profound emotional shock. We imagine that his immune system has been very compromised. It's a personal opinion, yeah, and that then she began maybe having some problems, respiratory problems, and then she had finally taken tuberculosis. That is probably the symptoms, dyspnea, cough, uh, putting out blood by uh, her mouth and nose. And we imagine that has her immune system was compromised, and tuberculosis was the cause of her state in this moment. You would you
Yeah,
like?
yeah, I thought the same. I thought that was tuberculosis, as you said before. And
Oh yeah,
if you allow me, I was just thinking that until now, the way that the soul talks with Abigail is like I steal over you, and I'm doing a favor to be here. Uh, because he approached and he said to her, I overcome my pride and I came to ask you for forgiveness. Look, was I felt like he means, look how good I am. I overcome my pride and I'm here to ask you. But look, I'm very good. I'm you know what I mean. It's really it, he was. I know he loved her, but he's still like not able to put to be humble and to sincerely asking her the forgiveness and say that he was wrong. He never in any moment he said, I'm sorry I was wrong. He never said that to her. And and that just show for me shows that he was really proud man. And I imagine his personality like a very strong man with a very strong character, to, and don't let Abigail to to expose her opinion. And like I think it was very difficult for her to be to feel loved by him. But I know that I think that she knows him enough to know how, because for her, even though he was rude, he was less rude and open with other people. So anyway, I would like to make this comment because it's very it's clear when you see him talk with her that even though he's not like loving, but he let the guard down a little bit for her than he does with the other people.
yeah. It's a special situation, we can say in that way. To not to say it's a very difficult situation. My end, it's at hand, but we believe in God, and we know the end, it's only physical. Our soul will never die. We will love each other forever. I do not agree, he replied in extreme distress. These assumptions are the result of absurd teachings, like the ones of these fanatic Nazarene. Please try to reason for yourself. You were wrong, so I don't feel sad, although I am convinced of the impossibility of my earthly happiness. Jesus was the Messiah, the giver of consolation and life. His influence has renewed my strength and has filled me with courage and true understanding. His gospel of forgiveness and love is the divine treasure of the suffers and disinherited of the word. But he said, invariably, the affirmation that he came for the miserable, the sick. Oh, what's that? What about the valorous men of the chosen people and the families from respectable traditions? I've read the teachings of Jesus in fulfillment of the prophets. Christ shows us that life is a collection of honorable concerns of the soul, enabling us to make our way toward God on pathways of righteousness. The valorous men whom you mention, they should be his hard-working children, but in the world, against all our highest inclinations, we are faced with enemies in our souls. Selfishness and jealously harms the divine command. Few are those who remember the divine watch care during the happy days. Just as real are those who work in spite of suffering. Christ is a way for everybody, a consolation for those who weep, and a guide for discerning souls called by God. Saul was impressed by her clear reasoning, but the conversation demanded much effort from Abigail and resulted in great fatigue. Her breathing became difficult, and it was not long before blood began gushing from her chest in a prolonged hemoptysis. Hemoptysis is to expel blood from the mouth and nose that comes from the respiratory tract. That suffering, adorned with tenderness and humility, both deeply touched and exasperated so. He understood that in the front of his betrothed it would be cruel to attack that Jesus whom he would persecute to the end. He did not want to believe that his Abigail was on the verge of death. He preferred to face the future with optimism. Once she recovered, he would return her to the old point of view. He would not tolerate the interference of Christ in the sanctuary of their homes. Contemplating her in that gentle attitude of supreme resignation, Saul of Tarsus experienced tender inner emotions. Abigail, he murmured tenderly, let's not speak any more of religious ideas. Forgive me. Let's remember our promising future and forget all else in order to gather our best hopes. You need to rest, he said lovingly. Don't worry about me. I will give you my own strength. Soon you will get well. He enveloped her in a look full of gratitude and infinite tenderness, and said, I'll come back to see you every night that I am able to leave Jerusalem. Yes, soon, she said slowly. Jesus will grant us what is best. Whatever may come, however, you will be in my heart always, always. The doctor of the law was about to say goodbye, but realized that his betrothed had said nothing with regards to her brother, but instead of reprimands, he had met with caresses. Instead of reproach, a generous peacefulness in which the young woman was able to hide the deep wounds, wounds in her soul. Abigail, exclaimed so somewhat hesitantly, before I leave, I would like to know whether you have honestly forgiven me for Stephen's death. Why are you bringing that up? She asked, making an effort to keep her voice firm and clear. My soul is at peace now. Jesus is with Christ, and he died bequeathing you a well-meaning thought. Even now I thank the righteous Father with all my heart for the gift of your presence in this house. So measured the extent of that spontaneous generosity, and his eyes became moist. He said goodbye. He pondered deeply when he had received such a profound lesson of humility and love from his beloved. Abigail was sensitive and affectionate. That unknown Jesus provided her heart with strength. If it was undeniable that illness was extinguishing her life, little by little, the, reju- rejuvenation of her spiritual energies was also obvious. His betrothed had spoken to him as if touched by new inspiration. Those eyes seemed to contemplate inwardly the landscape of other worlds.
Thank you, August. It was very Very, very emotional lesson today. Thank you all for watching us. And as we are approaching for the end of our lesson, we would like to ask everyone that is are watching this video to raise the thoughts to the heaven and join us in the prayer, asking the spiritual world to give us the bless. We thank you, dear Jesus, for this amazing class today, where we could learn so much from our friend August and also from this amazing book of Stephen. We thank you, Lord, for the opportunity to have this book, to learn more about this, not just about the spiritual world, but learn that everyone has the defeat, everyone can mistake, but what makes us Christians different than others is that we try day by day, do differently, do better, improve ourselves, love more, and care about the other more. Allow us, dear Jesus, to approach every day to the spiritual world. Help, oh God, those that are on difficulties in this moment, those incarnate and incarnate. Allow them feel the peace, the love, and the hope of a better days. Thank you, Jesus. Stay with us today and forever. So be it.
So be it. Thank you.